I feel an obligation to vote. Knowing some of the difficulties, the hurdles that people had to go through just to be able to give, have the right to vote or to have an opinion or a voice, it just doesn't sit right with me to be able to have this opportunity to have my voice heard, whether you feel like, oh, it's not gonna count. It doesn't sit right in my spirit to sit on my hands and say, you know what, honestly, I don't like either party. You go with the lesser of two evils. But instead of picking a lesser of two evils, maybe find the party that maybe more aligns with whatever your belief or practice is. Because for me, myself, I'm not 100% on the Democratic view. I'm somewhere in the middle on some of those things, be it on the financial aspect, maybe some of those maybe Republican views, or on the Democratic piece. As far as the maybe equality level goes with some things, the fact that people almost had to give their life literally to vote. The things that they went through, they would answer all these questions, go down to say, hey, I'm ready to vote, and we're still turned away. They did everything that was asked of them and we're still turned away. So to know that sits on my shoulder, that people only wanted to be able to vote, and you have the option to, and you just choose not to. And there are so many different ways you can vote now.
I think a lot of things can be managed in a lot of different ways, but I want somebody who's thinking, and it's interesting because it's going to sound like a reason why a lot of people support Donald Trump. It's somebody who thinks independently, but where I differ is somebody who's supporting the community and cares and is able to join people together. I feel like there's so much political gamesmanship going on. That it's hard to look at a candidate and say, I believe that when something happens, that this person is going to do what I need them to do and not what they need the party to do.
Let's try to keep this short and sweet. Among my own peer groups, me being 36, black male, I've noticed a palpable decrease in political discussion.
I feel like I'm losing my mind.
Meaning non-biased, non-partisan, open dialogue. I feel that a spirit of nonchalantness, if that's a word, misinformation, and even irrelevancy has been fostered. I believe the low turnout is a product of ignorance, compounded with political ineptitude, scandals, misappropriation of power, funds, and the American people's trust, and social media interference of varying degrees. I believe the low turnout is by design. I believe the low turnout is by design. I believe the low turnout is by design. Essentially, at the risk of sounding like a conspiracy theorist, the only way to combat these numbers is through aggressive and non-biased re-education and more transparency.
In regards to the current election and voter registration among my generation being down, I believe that is because we aren't focused on current laws. A lot of the time we are kind of taught about the past and not necessarily taught about the future and what the policies that we are voting for. We're not taught about small government. We're taught more so about big government and presidential elections and things like that. I think if we start at the root of everything and understand how politics work, how the policies are made, who we need to put in office, how we get change made at a smaller scale, it will kind of trickle over into the bigger scale as far as the election is concerned, and making a sound decision as far as who we vote for and how we vote.
One of the main reasons why I feel like young people have declined voting as much as they used to is there's so much information out there that could either be true or false, and people can be overwhelmed to the point where they feel like it's not even worth it. They feel like they don't see a change in certain aspects, so they don't even bother, even though they could be making a difference by voting. And there's also so much misinformation that it overloads people very easily, and if people aren't taught the right skills to dissect what is truth and what is not, it can be very difficult.
Election participation amongst young adults is declining due to an uninformed indifference. Many of my peers have limited knowledge on the impact that voting has on their everyday lives. Votes for your local school board and sheriff count just as much as votes for those in offices that run our country. And if this mindset was more common, younger voter turnout would drastically increase. The solution for the lack of young voters lies in educating them.
So like student loans, for example, I know there was a segment where Biden was trying to forgive student loans. I think that's an example of something that, we can look at and say, okay, does this make sense? If you have a lot of the country that will benefit from this going away, are we gonna, take care of it? Do we have to wait for it to be an election cycle for you to have to do it? When it comes to people in prison for certain things that are that are legal now. Again, are you gonna wait for this election to let to pardon a bunch of people, or
like for marijuana?
Yeah, do that. So I think it's a lot of things that, if you're the candidate, if you carry the values that you carry, you would take care of. But because of the political gamesmanship, these things don't get done.
Politics is often shied away from. It's a conversation that often puts us in uncomfortable situations. It makes us come into contact with beliefs and thoughts that are very far from our own. And therefore, we decide not to face the uncomfortable situations and we shy away from talking about politics. But I believe that when we shy away from politics, it devalues the importance of politics. And I believe if we started incorporating the conversation of politics into our everyday life, and we talked about the history of politics, not only the history, but the current status of politics and how it is shaping our future and our today, I believe that it would help the younger generation understand the importance and the power of politics. It is the greatest form of public service. Public service plays a pivotal role in everyday life, just like politics. And if we opened the doors for the younger generation to feel more comfortable with stating their beliefs and bringing them into spaces like Congress and opening up the conversation about politics and about elections and making it more comfortable and pivoting away from our negative thoughts, I believe that would increase the number and the engagement of the younger generation in politics and in elections and in being good Samaritans in everyday life. So whether you are young or whether you are older, please get out and vote. Our voice and our thoughts matter. Thank you so much.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.